The process of capture and release. When a trainer throws a Pokeball and it makes contact, the ball emits a red beam of energy that engulfs the Pokemon. This light does not destroy the Pokemon or erase its body. Rather, it functions as a compression mechanism. The Pokemon is miniaturized into a contained form that can fit within the spherical chamber of the ball. The flash of red light we see is the moment the physical matter of the Pokemon is compacted and drawn inside. When released, the opposite occurs. The Pokeball projects a white beam of energy that expands and reconstructs the Pokemon back into its full size and natural shape. The Pokemon materializes in front of the trainer exactly as it was before capture, with no sign of injury or distortion from the shrinking process. This two-step cycle, red light for capture, white light for release, remains consistent in the anime, games, and manga, reinforcing the idea that it is a universal mechanism across all regions and Pokeball types. This shrinking and expanding process is also the simplest explanation for why Pokeballs can store creatures of vastly different sizes, from tiny Caterpie to enormous Wailord. The mechanism scales evenly, ensuring that no matter the Pokemon's original mass or dimensions, it can be contained safely without harm. The light we see is essentially a visible marker of this compression technology in action. Consciousness inside the Pokeball. Multiple sources indicate that Pokemon do not simply vanish into unconscious energy once captured. Instead, they remain aware and responsive while inside the Pokeball. In the anime, trainers can shout commands just before release, and the Pokemon clearly hear and act on them the moment they appear in battle. Some episodes even show Pokeballs shaking or tilting slightly in response to a trainer's words, implying that the Pokemon inside is actively reacting. Additionally, Pokemon have been shown escaping or releasing themselves from their Pokeballs, which requires a level of awareness and decision-making. A notable case is Dragonite in the Black and White series, where it is depicted sitting calmly inside its ball, listening and reacting to what was said outside. The manga reinforces this idea by illustrating Pokemon as simply being shrunken versions of themselves sitting within the Pokeball rather than reduced to lifeless energy. Taken together, this shows that Pokeballs are not prisons of unconscious storage, but more like holding spaces where Pokemon remain alert, responsive, and ready to engage with their environment when called upon. The shrinking mechanism. Most evidence points to Pokeballs working by shrinking Pokemon down to a miniature size rather than transforming them into data or pure energy. The red and white flashes seen during capture and release represent the compression and expansion process. Once inside, the Pokemon's body is reduced but intact, allowing it to rest, react, or even sleep in this compact state. This shrinking explanation also clarifies several details. For example, Pokemon inside Pokeballs rarely show signs of fatigue while traveling with trainers. The Pokeball provides a controlled environment where they can rest safely, which is why many Pokemon do not require as much visible sleep outside of battles. Lucian, a member of the Sinnoh Elite Four, even suggests that Pokemon naturally curl up to heal when weakened, and the Pokeball's spherical design mimics this instinctive behavior, making the interior a space of recovery rather than confinement. The ideal environment theory. One of the most enduring explanations for what it feels like inside a Pokeball is the ideal environment theory. This theory suggests that the interior is not an empty void, nor simply a cramped chamber, but a space that adapts to provide conditions that make the Pokemon comfortable. In other words, the Pokeball adjusts itself to resemble the Pokemon's natural habitat. For example, a water type like Squirtle might experience an interior environment that feels like a calm pool or lake, while a fire type such as Charmander could sense warmth and dryness that suits its physiology. A grass type might find itself surrounded by an illusion of open meadows or soft ground. These tailored spaces would explain why most Pokemon remain calm and do not resist being kept in their Pokeballs for extended periods of time. Support for this theory comes from multiple points in the franchise. Lucian of the Sinnoh Elite Four explains that Pokemon instinctively curl up when weakened in order to heal, and Pokeballs are designed to mimic this behavior. Extending that idea, it would make sense for Pokeballs to also provide surroundings that match instinctive needs. By offering comfort, the Pokeball creates incentive for the Pokemon to stay inside rather than forcing compliance through brute confinement. However, the ideal environment theory has never been explicitly confirmed. In some anime and manga depictions, Pokemon are simply shown sitting inside the Pokeball in a reduced form, suggesting a more basic holding space. Because of this, some researchers argue that the idea of custom-tailored interiors might be exaggerated or symbolic, rather than literal. Still, even if not proven, the theory provides a compassionate and logical explanation for why Pokemon rarely appear distressed while inside. This perspective reframes the Pokeball not as a cage, but as a mobile sanctuary, a place where the Pokemon feel safe, calm, and ready to emerge when needed. Variations between Pokeball types. Not all Pokeballs create the same internal experience. Standard Pokeballs likely provide a neutral, comfortable environment, but specialized balls appear to modify conditions to suit specific Pokemon. For instance, a dive ball may generate an aquatic-like setting ideal for water Pokemon, while a nest ball could feel especially safe for younger or weaker Pokemon. A repeat ball may even use data from the Pokédex to fine-tune its interior for species already captured by the trainer. Other Pokeballs, however, function differently. Quick balls, timer balls, and dusk balls do not rely on comfort but instead on capture mechanics that adjust difficulty of escape. In these cases, the internal environment may not differ significantly from a standard Pokeball, but the ball's structure or energy field makes it harder or easier for the Pokemon to break free depending on the circumstances of battle. Meanwhile, friend balls and luxury balls emphasize long-term comfort, strengthening bonds by making the inside more pleasant once the Pokemon is already caught. Heal balls serve another function entirely. They deliver a dose of restorative energy immediately upon capture, ensuring the Pokemon regains health without leaving the ball. Healing within the Pokeball. The process of healing inside a Pokeball is one of the most overlooked but fascinating functions of this technology. In Pokémon Centers, trainers simply hand over their Pokeballs, and within moments their Pokemon are fully restored without ever leaving the balls. This indicates that each Pokeball contains built-in systems capable of administering treatment directly to its occupant. Evidence for this comes from the existence of the Heal Ball. When used, it not only captures the Pokemon, but immediately restores it to full health. This proves that Pokeballs are not passive containers, but active devices equipped with mechanisms for delivering medicine or restorative energy. The healing machine at a Pokemon Center most likely interacts with these internal systems, activating them in a way that distributes treatment across all stored Pokemon simultaneously. How this healing is applied can be understood by comparing it to items used in the games and anime. Potions, for example, are shown as sprays that release a mist, coating the Pokemon's body to close wounds and replenish stamina. Inside a Pokeball, a similar mechanism may exist, one that disperses a restorative mist or energy field within the chamber, enveloping the Pokemon's miniaturized form. Revives, ethers, and other specialized treatments could be adapted versions of this same method, administered in controlled doses. This system explains why healing in Pokemon Centers is instantaneous. Instead of physically moving or handling the Pokemon, the treatment is delivered directly within the Pokeball's contained environment. It is efficient, non-invasive, and consistent, ensuring that even severely weakened Pokemon can recover quickly. In essence, the Pokeball is not only a storage device and battle tool, but also part of the medical infrastructure that makes Pokemon training possible. Why most Pokemon accept the Pokeball? From the outside, it might appear restrictive, even cruel, to keep living creatures confined in a small sphere. Yet the behavior of Pokemon across games, anime, and manga consistently shows that most accept their Pokeballs willingly. The key lies in how the Pokeball blends containment with comfort. The shrinking mechanism removes the issue of physical space, while the internal environment offers rest, safety, and in some cases even accelerated recovery. For wild Pokemon, resistance is natural during capture, but once inside, the ball provides a space that does not harm or distress them. Exceptions like Pikachu in the anime highlight personal preference rather than systemic discomfort. Pikachu's refusal to stay in its Pokeball is presented as an individual trait, not a universal rejection of the technology. Pokeballs are also designed with instinct in mind. By replicating a curled protective posture that Pokemon adopt when weakened, the Pokeball gives the creature a sense of security. Combined with healing functions and potential habitat simulation, this turns the Pokeball into more of a mobile sanctuary than a prison. For trainers, this means their partners are safe and stable during travel. And for Pokemon, it means they can rest without vulnerability. The final picture. Bringing together all the evidence, a clear model of Pokeball function emerges. The capture beam miniaturizes a Pokemon into a compact state without altering its consciousness. Inside, the Pokemon remains aware and able to react, supported by an environment that is neutral at minimum and, in some cases, specifically tailored for comfort or species needs. Specialized Pokeballs extend this further. Dive balls may mimic aquatic conditions, nest balls may feel safe for younger Pokemon, and heal balls immediately restore health. Others, like quick balls or timer balls, focus on altering capture strength rather than interior conditions. Healing is seamlessly integrated into this design. Pokémon Centers and specialized Pokeballs activate built-in systems that deliver restorative treatments without requiring the Pokemon to exit. This allows for rapid recovery and ensures that trainers can maintain their partners in peak condition. Ultimately, this layered functionality explains why Pokemon rarely resist staying within their Pokeballs. Far from being lifeless cages, these devices serve as protective environments, places of rest, recovery, and readiness. The Pokeball is both a symbol of partnership and a highly advanced piece of technology that makes the relationship between humans and Pokemon possible.